Are we doing good? I can't whistle, so I can't get your attention, but woohoo. Okay, who wants to start with something very positive? What do we have to share in the room? Kimber's ready to clap. Okay.
The Utes won, and they're going to win on Saturday, and they're going to take the Pac-12 championship. So if any of you are USC fans, you're dead to me. Okay.
You're going down. Dallas Cowboys won. Hello. Woo-hoo. It's not a miracle. BYU won. Okay. Go Cougs. Oh, look at all the blue in the room. Come on, people. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Anybody want to give any shout outs to anybody? Anything else you want to share? Probably. Oh, something else. Okay, we'll get started. We have a very special guest today, so we're going to cruise through this first stuff. So we do have a vendor spotlight. Ladies, would you like to come up and say something today? They are helping supply our lunch, so we're absolutely grateful for that. And they also brought you treats, it looks like, too. So welcome.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? We can do better. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Trick question. Where do I work? I'm sorry, what was that? Thank you very much. I work with Incline Property Management. My name is Melissa. I've been in the industry since 1999, and sadly, I've not been scared away yet. Anyone remember the floppy disk and dial-up? You're my people. That's when I started back in the industry. I don't know if anyone knows, but the woman in black dress hiding the cute blonde, that's my partner in crime. Her name's Samantha. She likes to be embarrassed. It was her birthday last week. For fun, maybe we'll sing later. Oh, we do have a slide. Excited. Oh, we've already done this one. Who are we? Okay, we're gonna work on this, guys. I got all day. Who got me? Does anyone know what we do? Does anyone know what that means? What does it mean? Oh, like what kind of headaches? Like when the phone rings at 2 a.m. and there's a fire, there's a dead body, there's a sewer backup. Sadly, we've done it all between Samantha and I. Honestly, at this point, yeah, those are all real things. I can tell you great stories. Like people in my industry, we have the best stories at holidays. Like I really have had the SWAT team come out. I've really had dead bodies. We've had all sorts of good stuff. Just a little bit about what we do. I'm not going to waste your time because I know everyone's here to see Jonny and just eat, but that's okay. So we can do tenant screening, which means we're going to run the background checks. We're going to make sure that they haven't been caught by the police yet, all that kind of good stuff. We can do collections because no one ever moves out and owes us money, right? So we do have a collection agency that we work with that we can send people to collections. Of course, we're going to give them the opportunity to pay us first because we're a lot nicer than the collection agency. Tenant placement, we are going to advertise for owners so that way they don't have to worry about it. We're going to do property inspections, not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times a year because we want to make sure that the owner's asset is being taken care of. So that way, when they move out, there's no surprises. We will also evict. We are paid to be the bad person. We don't have a problem saying, hope you enjoy opening those Christmas presents in your car because we're going to evict you. We can also take care of the property maintenance so we can make sure that things are being taken care of, you know, because they're going to do those toilet things and all sorts of fun stuff and gross stuff. You know, we won't talk about those things, but we can handle that stuff. We can make sure things get painted, taken care of. We can do a la carte. Mm-hmm. Why do you want to use us? We are not in competition with you. I don't want to do your job and you probably don't want to do my job. Perfect example. We took on a client last month who has a triplex and a duplex. And she said, hey, guess what? I said, what? She's like, I want more. I'm like, oh, great. Come on.
Katie, can you go off?
Is that someone talking? Is that me? Oh, I was like, I heard voices in my head. I'm like, are they talking back to me? My therapist said that wouldn't happen. But no, sorry. I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, so I had a client who came on board and they're going to be buying more things starting in November. They're looking for something. I said, great, that's so exciting. So you know what I did? I emailed the realtor and I said, hey, thanks for the referral. You know that they're looking for this, this, and this, right? Because I don't want anything to do with it. He said, great, got you. I said, great. We don't want to be in competition with you. We want you to do your job. If you have that relationship, we don't want to touch it. We don't want to do anything with it. It's all you. We want to make our owner's life stress-free. Let us get up in the middle of the night. Let us deal with those gross things, the dead people, the SWAT team, all that fun stuff. And really, you just met me, so I don't know why you're asking why you don't want to hire us. The given. So I will wrap this up. Again, my name is Melissa. Been around a very long time. Samantha's still hiding, pretending like she doesn't know me because I embarrass her all day long. Keep telling her I'm taking this microphone with me. She thinks I'm kidding. Okay, what questions do you have for me today? I know you have questions, and don't ask about the dead bodies until after lunch. Yes, I walked into a dead body. Do you want to know what they look like after a few days? I'm going to give you reasons all day long why to hire us. No, but no, seriously, if you want to know about the dead people after lunch, please. And the sewer backups and the SWAT team. Anyone? Yes, ma'am. So it depends on how many units that they have. So say, for example, they only have 1 or 2 units, we're going to charge 9%. If rent's $1,000, that's $90. That's kind of like not a lot of money to have us do all the legwork. We let our owners be involved as much as they want. We have some owners that, you know, I get an email from them every night at 7 o'clock, like clockwork, because they're like, oh, hey, I just remembered, you know, and then there's others that it's like, hey, remember us? We're the one that sends you the paycheck once a month. You know, so really it depends on what they want to do, but it's not a lot of fee. Are there companies that maybe charge yes, but you get what you pay for and you don't get me? $9%. No, we're not going to a la carte. I mean, it's kind of like the big companies that like nickel and dime. We're not nickel and there to dime. We're there to take care of the asset, take care of the owner, make sure the tenant has a place to stay. That's all we want. All we want to do. We want to make them happy. And do you really want to get nickel and dimed? No. Any other questions? Are you guys just here to see Jonny? Is that what this is? Or are you just hungry? Okay, and Barry picked lunch. So if we don't like lunch, Barry did it again. It'll be amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. So hang out afterwards, have some lunch. Thank you for lunch as well. Okay, next we have Intralent.
Hello, everyone. How are you? You guys are like, I'm done yelling. Quit asking questions. Just kidding. So I know Terry wanted us to start out with some good news, and I'm going to tell you where rates are at, which is not the best news in the world, but I do have some good news to follow it. So I priced out a loan today that was just like a normal conventional 20% down with a 720 score. And they're right about 7.25%. So they're some of the highest rates we've seen since I've been in the industry, honestly. Inflation is at a 40-year high. So as a general rule, there's a lot of things that affect mortgage rates, as everybody knows, but when inflation is high, rates are going to follow. When inflation is low, rates are going to follow. So the good news that I have for you about that is we're either close or pretty dang near to the top of the inflation. We in the industry, the word on the street in the industry, so to speak, is we're pretty close to the top of the inflation. So within the next several months, going into 2023, we should see the Fed stop doing their quantitative easing, stop raising rates on us and dropping them back down. So we think in 2023, the housing market's going to start to heat back up because mortgage rates will be better. I know a lot of people have been priced out of the market, especially our organic Utah residents, but they'll be getting priced back into the market coming into the new year, I think. Luckily, Johnny's here to tell you why mind over market. None of that really matters. There's always business and deals out there. But the only other quick thing I had is the conforming loan limits have been at 647,200. Fannie and Freddie are going to raise them to 715 in 2023, but we're already offering that as a conforming loan limit. So if you guys have buyers that are getting into homes, which now they've appreciated so much, I know there's a lot of you, but if you have a purchase price or a loan amount that's up to 715, you can still do that and it's conforming. So they don't need 20% down. You can do your normal 5, 10%, whatever. So anyway, does anybody have any questions or anything for the mortgage stuff? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so really quickly, so Bold, if you have not heard about Bold coming, it is coming October 10th is the first step that is free. So we are encouraging every single person in this room to go. And I'm going to make it really easy for you. You can scan this right now to register. This is for the first day of Bold, so please register. And then while you're there, you will have the opportunity to go in and do Bold for several more weeks. It's an awesome program. How many of us have been through Bold? Lots here in the room and many very successful agents. So talk to them afterwards. Did everybody get this? Everyone's registered. Okay. So then we have Win with Buyers coming up with Emily. This is on the 11th of October. This is for 4 credit hours of CE and lunch provided. And this is Win with Buyers, which I think is super relevant right now as our buyers are, they're a little bit nervous. So also we have a training on Thursday, October 13th with Sammy, and she is going to be going up, setting up your KW marketing suites. Who has set up their marketing suite? I know I have. Maybe you don't even know what marketing suites are. If you came to Win with Sellers, that is all new branded marketing for you. So Sammy's going to be going over how to rebrand, basically redo all of this. So this is your listing packet, your seller packet, your just sold signs, your postcards, your signature, everything you need to run your business. These are beautiful. So I'm making a really big deal about this. Do not miss this class. And that is October 13th from 2:30 to 3:30. We also have our wonderful Carrie, who's going to be going over staging, seller staging strategies, also very important in this market. We need to make sure our listings are standing out. She is amazing. If you're not sure if she's good at staging, just go check out her cute office. It's basically like a house, a room. So that is going to be on October 25th from 11 to 12. And now we will introduce our guest speaker. Johnny, are you ready? Hey, we have Mr. Jonny Christensen in the house. I'm going to give a small bio and see how well I do. So he's overall just an amazing person. You absolutely want to get to know him. He is our regional director for Keller Williams here in the state of Utah. He is the regional owner in Argentina. So if you decide to move, please don't, and you want to go to Argentina, I'm sure he's looking for great agents. Just overall amazing person. So how about that?
Awesome. I'm excited to be here. How's everybody doing? Good. Yeah. 2 shout outs real quick before I get started. I personally use Samantha. I didn't know Melissa was a comedian, so congrats on that. That's awesome. But Samantha worked with her for about 4 years. She has all my properties. Totally awesome property management company. And then the last shout out is my cousin Carly just joined your office as a brand new agent. Yes. Sweet. So what's going on with the real estate market? How's it going? Sellers to buyers, yeah. What else? From 1 to 10, 1 being I hate real estate, 10 being this is the most exciting real estate market in the world. Where would you say you're at right now? 5, 6. Can anybody beat a 5 or 6? Okay, who's a 5 or 6? Raise your hand. Okay. 7. All right, optimism right there. Good. So let's chat about that. So again, they told me the mind over the market topic, which if you haven't read Shift, that's the first tactic in Shift. So we can chat about that. I've got more than 30 minutes of stuff to chat about. I wanted to talk about the market a little bit, just to get reality on what's going on. how we're preparing for it. But again, I'm totally okay too if we want to go chase a few squirrels and answer any other questions. So I tend to talk a little bit more about wealth building when I present, so we can chat about that a little bit. I spent a lot of time with our KWRI, our Realty International down in Austin executives. I'm on meetings every week with Gary, that type of stuff. So if you have any general questions about what's going on in our company, happy to answer those. Again, my main position is regional director, so I work with all the leadership teams in all the different offices, and we're doing really well with Keller Williams across the state. So I'm actually going to start with a couple market slides, if that's all right. So before I jump in, anything that's on your mind that you guys do want me to kind of direct the conversation towards? I wanted to kind of go over a couple just slides real quick on the most recent data, what's going on in the market, and then kind of talk about just a very authentic conversation, how you're preparing yourselves for that, right? And again, there's two different types of markets. There's markets where it's expanding and it feels like the wind's kind of behind us. And then there's contracting markets, right? Where there's just a little less business going around. It feels like we're having to work a little bit harder. Which one are we in right now? Yep, working harder. Absolutely. So if you have questions, we can go through those in a sec, but let's hurry and look at this. I'm doing the official Q3 market report. We'll start advertising that around the state, but that's October 26th. Some of you join me the last couple quarters. Every quarter, we have this actual slideshow here is 150 slides. So we have so much data that we're collecting as a region. Right now, we're collecting it from about 50, 60 different sources. We wanted to be able to provide to our Keller Williams agents the most relevant data of kind of what's going on. But I'm just going to touch on like 4 or 5 of those, and we'll jump into the other slideshow. Okay. So real quick, again, I just want to talk about mainly home sales, home prices, maybe a little bit of inventory. We're probably all familiar with mortgage rates, but what's going on with home sales right now? Declining? How much? How many homes did Utah sell last year? Somebody know? 1 billion houses. Yes, no. We were about 55,000 homes last year. The year before, about 60,000. No doubt we're underpacing that a little bit. What are prices doing? We've been known for being one of those top 5 markets in the country of just, right? It's been fun to own some stuff. Are we flatlined or are we going down right now? Yeah. What is driving us down? Interest rates? Maybe. Anything else? Yeah, inventory's going up. I think one of the things that's happened in Utah specifically is I think I underestimated the weight that builders have. I think a lot more of our builders have deeper and deeper pockets than they did the last recession that we went through. I think we had a lot more smaller builders or more local builders that were building. Over the lot of the acquisitions, the mergers, Edge was a perfect example, Woodside, we've had DR Horton, Toll Brothers, a lot of those other big ones creep in, and they just have the ability to make longer decisions, so they're throwing a little bit more money around very quickly in the marketplace. Sellers are always the last ones to adjust to a market shift, and the builders have actually been a lot better on the front end if you haven't felt that yet. I was even talking with our leadership team yesterday morning. A lot of the sellers that my team represents, we're having to ask for quite a bit of buyer concessions, right? To get those rates down, the 2-1 buy downs, that type of stuff. So we're still out there. But again, this is nationally. I'll just hurry and look at a couple slides. This is national home sales. Melissa, looking up jokes. Home sales annual, again, last year across the country, we were 6.1 million homes sold. Tons of houses sold. Again, there's 2 sides for every one of those. So there's 12 million sides. And we've kind of just really dropped quite a bit, right? So the projections are that we're going to end somewhere around 5.1. So 5.1 divided by 6.1, what's that? 1 million. So we're down about 22% closed units. So across the country, there's about 22% less homes sold the last 12 months, right? But here, look at even on a month to month. Anybody go to Mega Camp or watch Mega Camp? Carmody, I know, did. Handful of you. So Gary went over this slide. And again, the last 12 months, at the end of August, the end of July, we are on a rolling 12 months of 4.8 million. So again, even to end up at 5.1 million homes sold is because we still started the first handful of months pretty well. 6.5, 6, 5.7, but 4.8. So we're going to probably have to be even more like 4.6 million rolling 12 the next few months to actually get down to that 5.1 million. And one of the comments that Gary said at Mega Camp was it's really hard for him to think that we could go below that 4.8 million homes sold, just because that's record lows across the country homes sold the last several decades, right? And again, like I mostly believe that, but I still think there's a chance that we could even lose a little bit more of those cells, out there, right? So let's Utah again. We said 55,000 last year, 60,000 the year before, which was all-time record for the state of Utah. 60,000 homes sold in the country. I mean, in the state. My projections that I put on there is somewhere around 45,000. So we could fall from 60 and 55,000 to about 45,000 homes sold here. So what's causing a home to not sell? So how did we lose 10, 15,000 home sales? Mortgage rates, right? So we had an affordability issue before Brock raised the rates across the country, right? And again, going from 3.5 to 7.5 rates, that's crazy, right? And it's happened so quickly. Even me, we've talked a lot about some of the wealth building, cost seg, whatever, and I kind of have a little bit of my own algorithm on how much money I make on my business as a real estate, how much real estate I need to buy to then cost seg it so it wipes out or significantly lowers my tax liability every year. And even now, I've got to buy about another $1 million of real estate by the end of the year and cost seg it to really make sure I'm paying very, very little tax. So basically, instead of that, I'm going out and buying more real estate, creating jobs, that type of stuff. But again, what I normally would have even broke even, made a couple $100 on a month net cash flow at $1 million purchase price for a fourplex. With rates right now, 7.5, what's a non-owner occupied, maybe somewhere around there, maybe near 8. So I think I ran out at a 7.5 on Monday. I would lose about $2,000 a month buying that fourplex with 25% down. I'm like, dang it. And again, appreciation, if we were still cruising up, but if we're flatlining or receiving a little bit of depreciation and I'm negative cash flow on, you can see why there's some investors just waiting to, see what happens the next several months, right? And I just assumed that a lot of the pain of mortgage rates, raising the rates, a lot of what the Fed was doing would happen a little bit quicker. I was hoping maybe around the turn of the year, maybe early springtime, we were going to kind of get into whatever that new normal was, and even they're raising rates so fast. And what has inflation done? Not a lot, right? I thought by at this point, and 6 months ago when I came here and I said, think 7 to 8% mortgage rates. Does anybody remember me saying that? You all looked at me like I was crazy. And here we are, 7 to 8%, and we might not be done. Do you think we're done? Yeah. Where's the other more? Do you think we're done? Probably not. Yeah. Yeah, I think we got at least maybe another 1 or 2 raises by the Fed. So again, clearly it's not happened fast enough. So I don't think, within a couple months, we're going to be ready to go and just kind of into that new market. We could still kind of be seeing some of this market contracting the next, 3-6 months. But eventually there's just got to be a bottom or a ceiling or an equilibrium that has to happen, because there just has to be people that buy, it has to be people that sell, that type of thing, right? And it's just making sure that we're prioritizing our time on finding all those motivated people, right? Home sales, again, you can see home sales, we always have, you can see a lot more of that seasonality when you look at Utah or the more local markets. But the last couple of months, we've been somewhere around maybe 3,500 on average. And I think we're probably going to end up the next several months, 3,500-ish sales until the end of the year, which is going to probably put us on that 45,000 trajectory, closed sales, right? Annual price, you can see a little bit, we just keep cruising up, but the month to month's more what I wanted to chat about, because again, you look at the nation, somewhere around May, June-ish, and when we actually peaked on the average or the median sales price, right? So we've already seen consecutive months of a decline, right? So why is those declines happening? Yeah, more inventory. What? Supply and demand. Yeah. But again, we still have a lot of pent up demand, but it's just affordability is causing that demand to still sleep in their parents' basement or whatever, right? And again, builders too. Builders are jumping out the gates. They're if they were to wait another 6 or 12 months, the losses that they could take could potentially be more. So they're being a lot more proactive on taking some of those reductions. They're pricing ahead of the market, like we always talk about, right? And again, we're going to see, 6 months ago, I was under the impression from all the data that we're seeing that I thought we were going to have a hard time actually seeing values go down. I thought, if anything, mortgage rates would go up, we'd curb some of the demand, and even if anything, we might just flatline for a little bit. But clearly, we're seeing prices actually go down a little bit, right? But because we started the first 3 to 6 months off pretty strong, even the declines we're seeing could still end up with a positive overall 2023 appreciation, right? We're going to have to really drop the next couple months in, prices for us to actually get to 0% appreciation. But again, the jury's out for next year. Are we going to flatline? We're going to see a little increase. We're going to see a little decrease. What do you guys think? And then just used home prices, same thing, right? You can see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months ish that we've actually seen prices go down in the last 5 months. So, any comments on that? Yeah. Yep. BYU fans. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm always drastically more optimistic about our local economy than anything to do with the nation, right? We're always fiscally responsible. We have a positive net migration. Even our reproductive rate is higher than the country. So it's just like we constantly have a built-in predictable demand that our housing market's always going to go up. Our average incomes, typically are higher than the nation. Our debt activity is usually lower. A lot of just all those things that we track make us look a little bit better. The only challenge I really see in comparison is just that we appreciated drastically more compared to the nation. So potentially the retracting of some of that. It's just, when you look at 25% appreciation in a 12-month period, there's no way remotely that is sustainable, right? And even if we had higher incomes, we got a more stable economy, that we can absorb some of that. I just don't think we could absorb all of the appreciation that we've gained the last couple of years. So the only thing that I'm actually pessimistic about is potentially maybe some of our depreciation compared to the other, the real estate market across the country, right? Is there anything else that you guys think that you might be worried about when it comes to Utah versus the nation? I think that's probably the one that I'm looking at, but again, rents are pretty solid, that type of stuff. But again, we were always a little bit more affordable housing market up until the last 5 years compared to the nation, which we've kind of outpaced that. So it just depends on what our future, we want it to be, I guess. Yeah. 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 Well, and again, you've got to go rural. Like if you can afford, even in some of these local urban areas in a state like Utah, Idaho, Nevada, or whatever, like that's the biggest challenge, is that K economy, right? Anybody that's owned assets the last 2, 3, 4 years, they've got options. Either way, a recession's immediately painful for everybody, but they've got options. People that have just been renting the last decade, it's going to be harder and harder and harder, because they've just now chased, or they've been outpaced on their ability to catch up. So what were you going to say? Yeah. And again, the average recession, when you're actually in a decline, and you get those 2 quarters of negative GDP or whatever, the average recession of the last 40, 50 years has only been 9 months long on average. And again, that's when you're going down. So the fact is, the last 2 quarters has been a negative GDP. We've seen prices decline, some of those things. So just, again, whatever you think's not possible in the United States economy always can be possible, once Apple hit 1 trillion, to think that it could just go to 2 trillion, I'm like, "God, that just can't happen, And again, within what, like 8 days, it went to 2 trillion, something crazy. And again, this was the projection national home appreciation at the beginning of the year. So this is NAR stat that they said we're gonna probably most likely from all their data and algorithms appreciate 9%. They've revised this several times. Even 2 months ago, they revised this down to about 5% appreciation. And again, just even with the last couple months, there is a potential that we could be anywhere from 0 to maybe 2% appreciation around the country. We could really zero out appreciation this year. And even ideally, if we stayed at, that level for a couple years and not have to go down, we'll be able to catch up with some of that stuff, right? But it just might happen faster because of the aggressiveness that the Fed's taking. And then you see Utah home appreciation, same thing. You can't even see it because Zoom's in the way, but we were 24% appreciation last year in Utah, 24%. And then 6% was the projection. I still think same thing. We could get 0 to maybe 3% appreciation this year. Yep. Yeah, seller financing is personally what I'm watching for my investments. Again, you're seeing a lot of investors kind of sit on the fence just to see what happens. And there's two timings of markets. There's time to go make a bunch of money, and then there's shifts that it's time to save some money. And that's totally okay. And you're just seeing a lot of people kind of just stay steady. They're in preservation mode, they're in savings mode or whatever. But I think in the middle of the recession, it was almost the last recession when I basically was getting into real estate. For 1 out of 2, maybe 1 out of 3 listings offered seller financing. Like it was almost 1/3 to 2/3 of all listings offered seller financing. Where now, we were maybe like less than 1% offered seller financing coming into this market. I think we could end up going to maybe 20, 30% of listings again will offer seller financing, just because those low locked in interest rates are so highly motivating, which is also what a mediocrely motivated seller is going to choose to maybe just hunker down and keep that rate for a little bit and see what happens in the springtime or whatever, which is really what's driven the decrease of closed transactions, right? And again, you've got income that kind of goes in seasons when the market's expanding or contracting. But again, you also have agents. The number of agents in the business is kind of following that a little bit. And the time period that we're entering a little bit, we're at peak number of realtors in the country with the lowest amount of quick sells that we just went over that data. So average size per agent is not the best, and then once we usually come out of a shift, we've kind of got a lot of those hobby realtors or whatever kind of washed out of the industry. The market starts going up, but then we end up being kind of probably at the most low point of agent count, and that's the highest. We could only be 6-12 months away from that potential once we get ramped back up. So again, shifts should be your playbook. I've actually reread this, I think 4 or 5 times the last 6 months because it's so vital. And it's crazy that when you read it, you start implementing these plans. You can never predict what's going on in the marketplace, but you can almost predict what's going on in the marketplace, right? Like you see a lot of this data, a lot of the decisions that you make can kind of all come out of that. So we'll just zip through this real quick and then we can kind of go from there. So these are the main ideas in that tactic 1: perspective on the market, which we kind of just chatted about, opportunity mindset, mastering your skills, installing some key systems. We'll chat about those for a sec. And again, people always need to buy and sell. And in this type of market, what people need to always buy and sell? Yeah, who are the most motivated buyers in a market like this? What are those life events? Marriage, divorce, children, either having children or children leaving your house. Did someone say dogs? Getting a bunch of dogs? Oh, okay. I guess maybe. Cat ladies, yes. Job transfers, deaths are even in there, right? And typically about 50%, no matter what marketplace we're in, 50% of all closed sales are originated from those main selling reasons. So a lot of times too, you didn't have to really get too deep into who's motivated the last couple of years because just everybody would buy or sell, right? Now you have to just be asking more and more questions. Even my wife had a luxury listing a couple months ago, and immediately when she took it, I'm like, that does not seem like that is priced well, you know. And she's like, I know, I was just doing what the seller wanted, and she did everything she could to market it. She was emailing, you know, it to all the luxury agents around the country, yada yada. And I'm like, why are you working so hard for a listing that won't sell? But again, she had her mindset 3 months dated, you know, old. She just wasted 2 or 3 months on a seller that wasn't actually motivated enough to price it right. So after she did all that work, they're like, I think we're just going to stay for another couple of years. And she was so mad about it. But I'm like, you did this to yourself. Why are you mad? You know? And you got to make sure you're asking the right questions, because sellers, I think, is going to be one of the fastest ways that is going to get some of our agents out of the market, because they go all in on trying to service. They spend their time, their energy, and money on sellers that are part of the non-motivated percentage of the marketplace. You just have to be making sure that you're honing your skill set on that, right? Markets always shift. I want to read, I was just reading this again this morning. I just want to read a couple sentences out of this because it was so spot on for me. So it says, real estate is a cyclical business. What goes up must come down, and what is down won't stay there. Shifts are never unexpected, but rarely predictable. You know one is coming, you just don't know when. They are, in fact, inevitable. Shift happens. But we forget. Each time a shift occurs, we act surprised as if it had never happened before. Once the shift is over, we act as if it will never happen again. It's like we have amnesia, and that's odd since we deal with something similar every year. It's called seasonality. The season cycle of sales that repeats each and every year from month to month. There is an ebb and flow to the real estate business. Within each year, there is a time to make money and a time to save money. So it is natural. Most simply, take it in stride. Again, did anybody think that we weren't going to see a shift? Great. Yeah, totally. I understand. No. What are you going to say back there? Oh, okay. So again, it's just they're basically predictable, right? We knew this was inevitable. I even thought it was going to be several years ago, but we even had a few more great years. And part of it, you just have to prepare for it, right? You have to be ready for it, and you just can't get too emotional or mental about it, right? Because even if you just if it was all about information and changing your actions, changing your habits, you could read that book and totally do it. What I think I underestimated, now that we're kind of in a more of a recession type of environment, is the toll that our emotions and our mindset play on our actual activities that we go out and do. Would you agree with that? And part of it is, I guess, it's just hard to accept that, hey, because the only thing that has changed is recalibrating your conversion ratios on your economic model. So to make this amount of money, you had an economic model, whether you knew it or not, the amount of time, money, energy that you spent on the front end and conversations generating leads would equal this amount of business, right? And the only thing that's changed in this marketplace is just the conversion ratios from each step has got a little bit worse, right? Listing taken to close transaction. We used to be 100%. You take a listing, it was a paycheck, right? We're already down to about 65% of all listings will sell. I think we could go down as like low as maybe 50% in this marketplace of agents not being skilled enough to not take bad listings, right? And again, 1 out of 2 listings might not sell. So you just have to recalibrate that. To make that same amount of money, you're going to have to take twice the amount of listings. But if you go all the way through to conversations, that's the biggest challenge. It's just like we're having to make double, if not triple, the amount of conversations for us to equal the same amount of money that you made in 2021, 2020, 2019, or whatever, right? And even though that makes total legitimate sense, again, it comes back to emotion. Are we prepared to really go do it? Do you want it bad enough to go do it, right? I was even talking to Carmody for a second. I got roped into coaching my 5th graders tackle football team this year. Does anybody have any tackle football players in your family? And they're all 5th graders, right? And I thought it was going to be very easy, that I could just come in, lay out plays, practice, drills, all that sort of thing. And again, one of the things that I just underestimated at that age is I've got about half of my little athletes that somehow just want it. They're either sad or mad or whatever. They've got emotion, and I didn't realize how hard it is to teach aggressiveness or heart or passion. And there's the other half of the kids that just don't want it, and even some of the kids that do want it, they're 65 pounds at this age. Some of my other bigger kids, I got a kid on my team. The biggest kid on our team is 220 pounds, 5th grader that is bigger than me. He's bigger than me. Yeah. He's an X-Man, so he can only be on the O line and the D line, but he is the softest player on the team. And sometimes I just want to shake him like, look in the mirror, how freaking big and strong you are. You literally are the biggest kid on this field. But again, he just somewhere there's just a disconnect, and probably just because his whole life he's been told to be gentle, be gentle, be soft, don't pick on anybody. But again, at football, when you have pads on, it's time to shut that off, right? And and it's a weird comparison, but it's the same thing. Like I just underestimated how many agents in the marketplace just don't want it bad enough that they're willing to do the activities to go get it, because even in football, if you're just aggressive, you're drastically less likely to get hurt. That it's the people that go to tackle someone, whatever the adjective is, wussily, I guess. Like you go to just soft hit someone, you're drastically more likely to get hurt than when you're actually going full speed. And somehow when they actually get a little bit more aggressive and their intensity is up, their fun level goes up. Surprisingly, they have more fun when they're more aggressive, right? So even the outcomes are all positives for them. It's the same thing, right? For you guys just to recalibrate your ability to go lead generate and retool your economic model, you're going to enjoy it and you're going to have all the success you want, but somehow it's just coming down to you guys making the decision to go do that, right? And I've been saying this stuff for 6 months in shift preparation, and yet I still walk around Keller Williams offices, which we're the best agents in the marketplace and in the state right now. We have the most production. We're the #1 company. We take the most listings, close the most sales, yada yada. But still, how many of our agents are lead generating for 2 or 3 hours a day? What percent? Terry, you're around here. What percent of our Keller Williams agents specifically lead generate 2 to 3 hours a day? I think 5% or less. Who in here habitually the last 3 months, every business day, you take Sundays off, Saturdays off, some holidays, has lead generated at least 2? The standard's 3 in a market like this, but 2 hours a day. Nobody? Carmody, give him a hand. Yes. I need someone to sit outside of his office and double check that. And again, it's just a quick obstacle we have to get over, because even me, like I'm still like, oh, like lead generate for 2-3 hours a day. But somehow actually when I'm calling my sphere of influence, or even when I'm calling to recruit agents to Keller Williams, in the moment, I enjoy it. When I'm having good conversations with people about their real estate investment strategy, or them wanting to move or buy or sell or whatever, it's always just the fear between now and actually being in the conversation, right? Again, supply and demand, yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like the thing I always tease our agents about is every week I have one agent call me, text me, come into my office on this new, cool, sexy lead generation strategy, right? And my first question when they ask me my opinion on, putting their face on shopping carts or snack shacks at parks or whatever, I always simply just respond, do you have a 36 touch and are you consistently calling your database? And almost every time they're like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, no, then no other lead generation matters, right? Because again, we're very diagnostic on my real estate team. Last year, we did about 150 million in closed volume. So we track everything. We have enough staff now that we can track a lot of that stuff. And even when we get excited about other lead gen sources or whatever, it just always comes back to our time, energy, and money spent in our sphere of influence always has drastically a 10x return compared to any other source. So at a minimum, it is, just whatever your lifestyle is and whoever you're targeting in your sphere of influence, just do it, right? And that's what's always weird is some realtors that I don't think are going to make it in this business end up making it because they just have a sphere of influence that totally accept who they are. And all they have to do is just communicate with them well enough and actually just brand themselves as the realtor of that little sphere of influence, and they're going to be solid, right? But even supply and demand, like it wasn't necessarily inflation that screwed us up, right? It was all the compounding effect of all those other things, right? Because even in supply and demand, if we have a high demand for products right now in our country, a product for houses, product for cars, all that sort of thing, making it more expensive via rates by the Fed raising rates and stuff isn't the only solution. What would have been great is actually just dumping the marketplace with supply, right? Built more homes, built more cars, all that. But really the biggest challenge we face is the supply chain getting jacked up by COVID. That's where it was the double whammy for us, not just inflation going up, because if the Fed could have actually solved it through the supply chain, they would have. But because we still see there's challenges in that, they had to start raising rates, which is just purposely, intentionally trying to slow down the marketplace, right? And hopefully they just see that quick little thing where it's going to turn back up, that they hurry and turn it down a little bit so they don't overcorrect it. But again, it's like landing an airplane for them. They just have to just try to get it right, but most likely they might screw it up a little bit, right? Again, you guys know a lot of those things, but affordability index, major financial ability to buy, index of 100, like affordability, we already had a little bit of a challenge, but even just barely when rates were sitting around 6.5%, a purchase price of a $500,000 home back even 6 months ago at interest rates would have been somewhere around a $2,000 payment, right? On a $500,000 purchase price, which was the median purchase price for the state. Median loan 6 months ago, payment would have been about $2,000 principal and interest, right? Even just going up 3 percentage points, that payment of a $500,000 home just went up $1,000. Crazy, right? But again, either we've got to get rates to go down, we have to substantially reduce building costs, labor costs, land costs, all that in some of our new inventory to drive it down, or simply purchase prices might have to come down a little bit, or wages have to drastically go up. There's only a handful of solutions for that. And even now at a 6.5% interest rate of $500,000 home, to actually get that payment back down to $2,000, do you know what that purchase price would have to be reduced down to make that 6.5% interest rate have a same $2,000 payment? $350,000. You'd have to drop $150,000 on purchase price, right? So it can go either way, but it just, is that possible? I just highly doubt that is possible that we could drop, right? So most likely the solution is going to be a blend of those things. I think one of the challenges ongoing, it is just the Fed, right? Like we've made a lot of these things and inflation hasn't drastically changed yet. And I know there is a lag to it. But part of that is, what would next year look like? So even by the end of the year, if we immediately start seeing a drastic decline in inflation, down to 4, 5, whatever, that we're trending down to that 2 or 3% sweet spot that they want, what do you think they're going to do with that rate? You think just boom, overnight, they're going to drop it back down to 0. So our rates get back to 3 or 3.5%? No. They're probably just going to have very slow incremental, shifts down, so we just got to realize as realtors, professionals, that we just are not going to probably see those 3-4% rates for a long time. Okay. I don't think if ever we might not see them, but I still think we probably will eventually, because we proved that banks can make a lot of money at 3% interest rates still somehow. Right. So I just think next year we're still going to be dealing with high mortgage rates, and you just have to realize this is the new marketplace that we're in. You guys agree with that? Yeah. And I know when you say, oh, the last 30 years, the last 50 years, we've averaged 8% mortgage rates. But when 70% of our realtors in the business right now have been in the business 5 years or less, none of that matters. Nobody cares what happened to the veteran agents 25 years ago, right? It still is painful for us, but we just have to come to grips with that. Yep. Well, rates are just the fastest thing they can move, and part of even COVID, we were talking about this, she started a reception center in 2019, right before COVID hit. And then COVID hit, she was on the bad side that just, one of my buddies down, I think I told you this story, but one of my buddies down in Texas owns a theater chain. So he owned like 100 movie theaters in Texas right before COVID happened. He spent 30 years building his life up to getting to this empire. And within 1.5 years, like he basically ended up filing bankruptcy and just lost it all, because of that. But us, on the other hand, we were on the positive side, other than the month of March, maybe, like it was the best real estate market you could have been in. It was crazy to work in, but no doubt it was great. 20% of buyers that bought in the last 18 months regret their purchase because they had to move so fast. They couldn't do inspections. They just had to get put into stuff that just they're looking back on it. Luckily, they're probably still happy with their rate. But in general, let's talk about buyer and seller expectations right now. We've already talked about a few of them, but we've only got about 5 or 6 more minutes. What expectations are you setting with sellers right now? Price reductions, pricing ahead of the market. Yeah. Buyer concessions. Yep. What's the max that you can get contributed to a buyer from a seller concession? Depends on how much down. I learned some of this yesterday, actually. Yeah. So if you're under 10% down payment, how much typically can a seller max do in concessions? Yeah, it depends on loan type too. But actually 6%. 6% if it's under 10%. But if it's a 10, 25%-ish interest rate, down payment, how much can they contribute then? You guys know? It's like 10%. Mm-hmm. And depends on the loan program, but those are still some ballpark things that you can do when you're educating your sellers on getting some buyer paid concessions, right? Because again, even 5%, like we can live with 5% rates for a long time, right? So even if we can get back down to there, it might not be 3s, but it's not 10s or whatever. So I think that might be something that we float around on. What are some of the buyer expectations you're trying to set? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you guys see this this one? This chart from MegaCamp? This is great data to put into like an email newsletter. And Jay Papazan sent out an email that if some of you want it, your leadership could probably forward it to you. But they basically just did a full analysis on the true renting versus owning philosophy. And again, every couple of years, it's hard to predict, but when you're looking at a decade, they're pretty predictable on overall appreciation, right? That's where you get a lot more season 4-5% on average appreciation. But basically, if you bought, in 2012 and own the home until 2021, there's 3 options. So number 1 is owning. So how much actually it costs to own a home, and it's not just down payment, their closing costs when you do it, it's also the maintenance of the home falls on you, some capital improvements, all that. There is some expenses outside of just a rent payment when you're a renter. But owning, the average person that bought a median purchase price, median interest rate, blah blah blah, after a decade had $206,000 of net worth through that avenue. So basically a lot of just forced savings equity in their property, right? And the 2 renting and investing options, renting and investing, were the difference between owning a home, the money you would save by simply paying your rent, which sometimes payments, P&I, and just a rent payment might have been somewhat equivalent, but it's all the other costs of owning a home, the maintenance, capital improvements, a lot of those things, property taxes, insurance, where rent, you're just paying one amount and that's it. But even if you did save 100% of the extra from owning a house to renting a house, and then invested that into like the S&P 500 stock market, if you were very, very diligent, what percent of our society would be 100% diligent on whatever they saved that they invested, right? So even if you were that diligent of a person, you would end up with 124,000 over that decade. Okay. And again, renting and 10% investing. So even if you rented and then you only saved 10% of the money that you saved, same thing, you would end up with only $79,000. And you could do this with almost every decade or the last 20, 30 years. And still, hands down, even with the seasons of values going down a little bit or whatnot, if a recession occurs, hands down, this is some great data because this is just everything's included. Owning, again, just beats out renting every single time. So again, buyers, same thing. It might feel a little painful. You hear those things, date your rate, but own your home or buy your home or whatever, marry your home. Same thing. In the long run, you're still going to have a higher net worth than you ever would having owned a home, for sure, right? No doubt we're going to have to be a little creative on financing options. Seller financing, I think, will be awesome. I think you're going to see a ton of seller financing. ARMs, which we thought were scary. I think you're going to see a lot of ARM products even get a little bit more popular, buy downs, a lot of that stuff, right? So, okay. Well, it's almost 11, so I won't finish those other ones, but what else do you guys want to talk about? Any other questions? Anything we can go? Any direction? We scared him away. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Because I literally asked these exact questions, and it was our intralend lender. It was a wholesale channel, a wholesale product, conventional, normal down payment, whether it's 5 or 20, depending on which option. Straight up, he looked through all the underwriting guidelines, and that was the product and the thing. So it might just be a different product that lender's trying to. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it was through UWM. And again, you have to be familiar with those variables because you just don't know which product might make it there. And that's why I've actually migrated my lending more to the broker style, because there's just different products, and you just never know which product's going to fit in your buyer's forte. So you okay with doing some loans, intralend? Okay, good. All right. Anything else? Anything else you want to chat about? Yeah, we just are barely starting to look back into that. We had to do that a bunch of times back in the day, for sure. There was an actual company that brokered for it. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but you could still somewhat, depending on your home warranty and lender. Really. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You're going to start seeing some more government programs already starting to roll out a little bit. The biggest threat to the economy and the federal government is not attacking first-time home buyers. Last year, 2021, a third of all homes bought were through first-time home buyers. And again, they're the most affected by rate increases, price increases, affordability, wages, or whatever. And those are always the group of buyers that you always start seeing local, city, state, county, federal grants, tax credits, and stuff like that starting to come out just to like somewhat reprieve the challenges that we're facing. So again, there's still so much business to go around. And I still think any one of our agents, whatever your goal of income, I don't care what it is, whether it's $10,000 a year or $1 million a year, you 100% have the runway to go do it. You just have to emotionally accept the work and the things that you got to go do, and the motivation, all the things we've chatted about. You just have to be committed to it. You just got to want it. You just have to have the intensity and the aggressiveness to go get it. Yeah, because I built the habit 10 years ago to work out in the morning, and it's not just working out for me physically, it's because I consume a lot of podcasts in the morning. So I'm usually an hour to 90 minutes of podcasts every single morning. And every once in a while, maybe I'll touch a Joe Rogan that's 8 hours long podcast. But for the most part, I'm cycling through all sorts of news stuff, anything to do with macro economies right now. I'm paying attention to Wall Street Journal stuff, Apple News, there's a bunch of those. Pretty much anybody, if you just Google KW Connect and who Gary Keller has been interviewing the last couple of years, I immediately subscribe to them. Scott Galloway is a big one right now, really very smart, educated person. Even some of the people we've locally used some of their curriculum, like Matt Sorensen, Mark Kohler. Again, it's a lot of nerdy stuff, but it's a lot of lawyers, attorneys, economists, a lot of those people that are just knee deep in every bit of the data, because I would just like to know what's going on before anybody else. And then pretty much any real estate podcast that actually then moves into strategy on adapting to the marketplace, I listen to. So Keller Williams or Keller Williams top people have, I don't know, 10, 20 of them that I subscribe to, a lot of those that I subscribe to. But again, even just I try to still prioritize 20-25% of my available time that I'm spending on learning, going back to the basics of shift, MREA, which is sometimes the hardest for people because they're like, oh, I read it, but it's actually the best when you go back to it 2, 3, 5 times. this is just not a time to bury your head in the sand for sure. You got to have some sort of habit. Stop listening to music in your car or when you work out or something. You've got to be, internalizing a good 30, 60 minutes of stuff, What else? Yeah. Yeah, I got another class I can come back and teach that I've kind of reorganized the way I think about wealth and what my journey of building wealth was. Basically, I call it 10 steps to 10 million net worth. And part of it is I just tried to think back, over the last 10, 15 years, is what are some of the certain financial principles that I truly learned about, not just learned about, but then I accepted and internalized and built a habit of it in my life, right? Like one of them clearly was being financially literate. Like I committed early on to read 100 finance books, right? So part of that, it took me a couple of years to get through them all, whatnot, but I just basically now dedicate a certain amount of time every year to financial education, right? So that was one of those. Another one is just you've got to have a plan for your money before the money hits your account, right? We call it a wealth coordination account. So I have basically just a total separated account. All income comes there. I never spend any money. I don't even have a debit card or checks to that account. And once all that money goes in there, whether it's 1,000 or 100,000 or whatever it is, I have very clear percentages of where that money then is directed, which basically 50% I live off. I try to get 30% to my investing, 10% to giving, 10, 15% to my tax savings account or whatever, right? And those are just some of those financial principles that you've got to just like learn about and internalize and move forward. Who asked that question? What was your question? I'm coming to the point. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the next principle actually on that, which I think when the market's going well, it just gives us the ability to just be complacent, get a little less disciplined in things. But one of the diseases I kind of feel like has gone across us is we allowed ourselves to get bored too early on in our journey and start bringing other little things onto our plate, little side hustles. Like my real estate team, for example, and maybe it's my fault because I've got, a few things going on. But one of the things I accepted early on in my financial wealth building journey is I was just going to commit to one job, one job, and I was just going to master the crap out of it, right? And I wasn't going to bring a lot of other things onto my plate. I committed to even not selling real estate. When I decided to be a team leader, I not just time-wise, but I emotionally says, I'm going to go all in on this, and I was totally willing to time block a decade of my life to mastering the skill set to be a great team leader. And I can almost pace every single opportunity that I have in my life, wealth, investments, Argentina, all these other things, strictly out of being committed to doing something very, very, very well. And then after that, things just come out that I could build upon once I actually stepped out of that job. And so part of that is, one of the things with this marketplace, you just have to go back to committing your full-time job selling real estate. You just got to eliminate those distractions. And again, real estate isn't about selling real estate. It's about following a schedule. So even just sticking to your consistent schedule where you prioritize your 20% stuff will just, for me, I've never felt like I was just miraculously talented or knew something everybody else couldn't go learn. I just showed up. I honestly feel like 50, 60, 70% of my battle was simply showing up to the office every day and then just simply following a schedule, right? So I think even just simple terms, we're trying to just get them to do that, right? And another thing too is even inside their career, a lack of focus has been challenging. They've chased squirrels. Everybody wanted to land develop. Everyone wanted to represent a builder. Everybody wanted to have one investor that bought 40 houses or whatever. And they started neglecting their database of 200, 300, 400 people. So we've even installed several accountability systems to go all in on holding them accountable to the most simple things, which is sometimes even a nightmare for us to track all of it. But we've got 15 agents on our team and we religiously track their top SOIA. The second they call someone, we require them to log it. And then we actually have a ratio over the last 90 days, what percent of their SOIA have they actually had a conversation with? And our minimum standards, you have to be at 80%, closing the gaps to maybe 90%. There's always going to be 10% that might just never call you back, or you can't ever have a conversation. You got to go chase them down or whatever. But what was weird for us is because we used to track that 5 years ago, 4 years ago or something. And somewhere just with the hustle of the real estate market, we went away from that. And when we went back to it, the first time we pulled those numbers, assuming that, maybe we went down a little bit, but our team was still doing pretty well on it because they were still logging it. On average, our team was about 20%. They were only getting a hold of maybe 15, 20% of their database the last 90 days. And we just assumed because we built the habit, they were still going to the habit. We had to go overcorrect everything. So again, we're having to redo Power Up because they're probably not going to call people if they don't have some sort of like energy building quick little moment or something. And then we're actually starting to require agents to come back into the office, because again, the likelihood that they're just going to get their calls done in the craziness of kids and family and all that stuff is unlikely. So at least come in, make your calls, then go be crazy or whatever, right? So anything else? Yeah, it is. We do it off letter of the last name. So basically every quarter ends up being some around with the weeks that are in a quarter, because out of 90-day quarter, there's about 60 working days, maybe 55, something like that. And we basically pick two letters. So like this week is like H and Q, because H has a bunch, Q doesn't have very many. And it just on average ends up being somewhere around, 20, 25 conversations each agent on average has to do every single week. So whatever your thing is, even if you just start from the top and go through it, somehow letters was the most common thing for people to kind of just rotate around. And I don't care really, like, some agents like to just do their 5-10 conversations a day, every day that week. We also have agents that just want to slam it all out. They'll spend 5-6 hours calling everyone that they need to that week. And then the other 4 days, they can be a little less disciplined on it. It's just whatever, you just have to be realistic with yourself. What's going to get it done in your life, right? Cool. Anybody else? Any other questions? Investing, KW, mind over market. Yeah. Oh, okay. You were cheering. Okay. Yeah. Well, and the biggest actual shift in that is the type of touches we're doing within our sphere of influence, right? Like even just a year ago was a little bit more of fun, entertaining, type of touches. Even our events were based on Halloween parties or, photos with Santa or whatever. And we're still doing some of those, but our goal starting 3 months ago was, we're going to rotate half of those out and replace them with educational things, which surprisingly are free. So they don't actually cost you money. So it actually helps you bring your expenses down. And for timeliness of the market and seeing who's motivated or even just adding value to them, education. So even I personally have taught, 10 investment classes the last 3 months. We've got a whole new first-time home buyer curriculum that Keller Williams has put out. They clearly saw some of this coming and they redid not just the first-time home buyer book that they did, they rewrote that totally. So even that book just barely released, a couple of weeks ago, I think, right? That they're now officially for sale. So any of your first-time home buyers, that's a great book. But they also at the same time redid all of the first-time home buyer seminar PowerPoints, curriculum, handouts, all that sort of stuff. So I think between investments, first-time home buyers, mortgage or grants or something, like theme some of them and just even combine and do some classes. Our goal is to have some sort of educational event, whether it's Zoom or live, between our team, because we have a team of 20, but every single week. At a minimum, you should probably think about doing something monthly, even if you're combining with a couple other agents or whatever in the brokerage. So cool. Yeah, so the first step for us was getting everybody 100% rolling on their sphere of influence. So that was been really the last 3 months of work. And our team right now is averaging about 83% of our entire SOIA is being called now effectively. So it took a whole 3 months to recondition everybody to get up to that point. So that is part of their 20%. The more they're just having in general conversations. And I know we just glazed over bold, and bold can be a lot of work. But if I was an agent and I was looking at the marketplace, my first thing would just be to jump into bold, because that's one of the most fast catalyst to actually get someone to change their behavior when you go through it willingly. If you go through it resisting, you're not going to change your behavior. But that program's designed to get you in your 20% in your productivity. Now that we've kind of got that rolling a little bit, just hitting our SOI, we've got a few goals for their SOI Bs and Cs, which is basically everybody else, actually moving people up, so if you only have 200 in your SOI A that you've been rolling through, all right, by the end of the year, how do you get another 50 up to that category? So we feel like that's part of the 20%. And then probably in the next month, we're going to move into phase 2, which is everybody's got to choose their second lead generation source. That's a proactive prospecting based type of thing. It's not the shopping cart thing. It's like open houses. It is cold calling. It is door knocking. It is all those different things. And at least getting to a base level of conversations per week, which our first step is to get everybody on the team after SOI. Now doing at least another additional 25, 30 conversations per week. Not dials, not attempts. It's just actually talking to people. Yep. Yeah, I think in this market, my goal would be 20 conversations a day, 100 a week. And again, when I was tracking everything, calling for sell by owners, sphere of influence or whatever, it was about a 50, 60% answer rate. So for every, 40 or 50 people I called, I would end up talking to 20. I think it's gotten a little worse. And depending on how you categorize text messages, I think we might be as high as like 80-ish contacts, dials to get a hold of 20 people. But still, even without a dialer where you're calling multiple people at a time, I still think that is drastically doable in 2 to 3 hours. So, but again, this isn't like call someone, oh, I got a new email. Oh, someone texted me. It is like eliminating distractions, leave your phone somewhere else or whatever, go jump on an office phone or something, and truly just lock yourself in a closet for 2 hours. Okay. Ben Kinney's saying on that. One of the things he did, I don't know if he actually did it or he was saying it, but to get his team to actually commit to unobstructed lead generation time for 2 hours, he had these lead gen rooms in his office that were like frosted over. He would make his team members go in there, take their pants off and hand it through the door, and they couldn't come out and get their pants back unless they had made all those phone calls. So nobody saw them, but I'm like, that is pretty extreme accountability, to be honest. You couldn't just leave and, escape, but do it privately. Okay. We're not promoting, just kidding. Yeah. Anybody else before we end? Okay. Well, thank you for coming. Recommend you jump on the quarter market report when we go through all that, and at least go to the bold first step, bold coming up on October 10th. The 26th, 10 a.m. It'll be about 90 minutes. We'll go through all of this data. So again, we go through these all updated. We go through all sorts of mortgage data, rental data, construction data, builder permit data, commercial data, luxury data, all those different things. And again, even at just a minimum, jump on one of them so you know what's in the market report. So every quarter when we release it and put it out to the agents, you know where you need to hurry and skim to and what charts you might want to use for different clients or groups of your database. So cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
Should we have him back? Was he not amazing? Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Yes, we absolutely do. It's already on my list. October 20th. It's October 20th. Is everyone coming? If we get him back here for that, are you coming? Okay. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. There is some fabulous food back there. Please hang out with our lovely ladies from Incline. Thank them for lunch and have a great day. Thanks.